welcome back to the only podcast that has technical difficulties and has to record the entire intro all over again. My name is Travis, and I'm here with Rob.
Hey, everybody. Happy New Year for the second time.
For the second time. We literally did 2 minutes of podcast, and it messed up. So here we are recording again because, of course, we are. Welcome back to the only podcast that teaches you how to learn, grow your YouTube channel, and also is basically a candy podcast hidden by YouTube growth advice, as that never seems to stop being interesting. I really thought by now we'd be over it, but we still get comments and messages about, different candies. I don't know. We should probably literally start like a candy podcast, I think.
I have been enjoying Boosts recently. People will need to Google what they are. It's a type of chocolate bar that tastes worse if you put it in a fridge.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of the, I think because it has caramel or fudge in it, and something just goes rock hard and it's not nice. And also Cadbury's Misshapes.
What is that?
To an outlet shop where it advertises itself as misshaped chocolate, but it isn't really. It's just chunks of Cadbury, but you don't know what the flavor is. You don't know if it's going to be caramel or it's going to be solid biscuit or just solid chocolate.
What?
Wild times, Travis. Wild times.
I'm so confused. So basically it is the outlet store of secondhand. Well, it's not even secondhand candy. It's just, what do they call those? Like when you get clothes that are not perfect, they're like imperfect. It's imperfect candy.
Thrift candy store.
It is a thrift candy store. I did not know this exists. It sounds like a great business to have because really it doesn't cost you anything less. It's something you would normally have to remelt and redo. That's interesting. So you went to the secondhand.
Regardless, so it's all good.
So how did it cost more or less than a normal candy?
Don't know. We were probably suckered in by the marketing, and I think it was £6 for 500 grams. It lasted like 3 or 4 days. So no, it's probably just the same price as everything else.
Interesting. For those of you that are new and have no idea what's going on, don't worry. Let's go ahead and get into the YouTubery things. Here we answer your messages and comments and everything here on the podcast. You can either email us at theboost@vidIQ.com. If you're listening to the audio podcast, there's a link to send us a text message. But today, and sometimes we take a look at the comments left for us on our YouTube channel. And there was a comment that came up today, and I just wanted to get into it before we go into the emails because it's a weird thing because it's kind of a myth, but it's also kind of true. So I just wanted to answer it real quick. So a little while ago, as we're recording this, someone left a comment on our latest podcast does video length affect the algorithm? And the question is, or it's not even a question, it's a comment. A thumbs down is engagement. YouTube doesn't care up or down or comments. YouTube sees all engagement as engagement. This is true. It is engagement, but I think the implication is that it's good for you. And that is not true. So that's something that came out a long time ago and has been debunked by YouTube themselves. You have to remember that a thumbs down is a personalization for the person who did it. It doesn't mean it's going to show it to more people. So in other words, if I thumbs down something, what I'm telling the algorithm is I don't want to see stuff like that. So I'm actually not being promoted your stuff in the future, or not as often. And certainly if I do it a lot, maybe not at all. Well, so while yes, it is engagement, that's not necessarily good engagement, because if YouTube sees a lot of people with my watch history giving thumbs down, it's not going to show your content to those people. So I think what happened a couple of years back is someone randomly said, and I don't remember who it was, that all engagement is good engagement, and then everyone just kind of jumped along the board with that, and that's not true. It is engagement, but not all engagement is good engagement. If you get a lot of people not watching your stuff, then you're not going to get stuff watched. The one quote exception, but it's not even an exception, was remember the end of the year YouTube videos that YouTube used to do, and the last one they did had like the most thumbs down in like the history of everything. But typically that wasn't being promoted so much, but it was a spectacle, so everyone was like looking for it. Despite the fact that it had all the thumbs down, it was shared everywhere. Now that has happened to us. Rob, you've done a video on the vidIQ channel that has a ton of thumbs down. You want to talk about that? I know about this. I'm surprised you're having a hard time remembering.
I'm trying to remember now. I have this weird flashback to... This was years ago, though, right?
Yes, it was years ago.
I told people to dislike the video, didn't I?
I'm not even thinking of that one. I think it's the how to download a video.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So that one is an interesting one because it was titled "How to Download Your YouTube Video."
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, when people are searching on YouTube, they have a ulterior intent to just download people's videos in not the way you're supposed to do. But my video, it was actually just cookie cutter. This is how you properly download your own videos, or if you have YouTube Premium, you can download videos as well. And everybody hated the fact that it didn't tell you how to break YouTube's terms of service.
Mm.
And so it was massively disliked. And not only that, but people flagged it.
Oh.
That it wasn't giving them the real salacious underhand way to download YouTube videos. And YouTube pulled it. They pulled it for that reason. And I had to fight tooth and nail for them to reinstate it, saying that I'm just showing people how to legitimately download a video from YouTube if you have, you know, the right tools, YouTube Premium, or it's your own channel, etc. Mm-hmm. Because we got a copyright warning for that, not copyright, a community guideline warning for that. You know, I didn't want that besmirchment on the channel. And yeah, I made a whole video about it, but God.
Yeah, let me tell you what the stats are on it. So the likes versus dislike percentage is really bad. The amount of likes it got was 19,700 likes. You're like, wow, I got 19,000 likes? Yeah, but it had 31,000 dislikes. But in the end, over 6 million views, almost 7 million. And even despite the fact that, like you were saying, a lot of people didn't like that, we gained 20,000 subscribers from that video. So that's
hilarious.
That's pretty good. And you know what? It's still getting views even to this day. It was made back in 2019. And even in the last 48 hours, it's got almost 200 views on it.
Has it?
It's really interesting.
Me, Travis, what's the most recent comment?
I'm going to look at like some of the more recent stuff. So what's interesting is over the last 7 days, it's only got about 400 views. But if we look at like the comments, let's see, sort by newest. Okay. At 0000, the last one from 5 days ago says LOL, and then the next one a month ago says real title: How to watch a YouTube video offline, download your own YouTube videos. So yeah, not much.
And that was it. It was the interpretation, I think, of a single letter in the title, something along the lines of, I titled it "How to Download a YouTube Video." And people were saying that it should have been titled "How to Download Your YouTube Video." But my argument was that, yeah, but if you have YouTube Premium, it's how to download a YouTube video. Like, I really got into the semantics of the argument.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't believe that I was being punished for telling
the truth, like doing the actual thing.
For being ethical.
Now, let me ask you a question, Robin. I want you to be 100% honest behind this.
Yeah.
When you made this video and you made the title, did you know what you were doing?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, all right. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah. But I thought, how can I get in trouble for making a video that was 100% accurate and true? I hope YouTube's not watching this now, because they may rewatch it and decide to take action.
Listen, Rob, I've been watching a lot of murder documentaries, and people get thrown in jail for people they didn't even murder people and they went to jail. So everything's possible in this world. It's wild. It's wild out there.
I want to linger on this question, Travis. This comment, because I had some thoughts.
Go for it.
And it comes from some interesting things that Todd mentioned in his recent discussion with Rene about the algorithm.
All right.
And I think what they were trying to summarize was that they mentioned one thing, which is not all watch time is valued equally. And I think you can extend that same argument to any metric on YouTube, that being a like or a dislike. Because I remember him saying that I think likes are of particular interest and usefulness to the algorithm for music videos, whereas watch time is of much more importance when you're watching a podcast on television. So to just have this blanket statement that likes are good for engagement. That doesn't seem to be the case. And also from another point of view, and you kind of alluded to this, and Todd says that the algorithm is viewer-centric. So does that mean it weighs a like differently depending on who is submitting the like? For example, I hardly like any videos on YouTube. So if I happen to like one video, does that mean YouTube puts an extreme amount of value on that like because it's so rare for this viewer to do that, that it means that it's really going to then look for similar content from similar creators because Rob has made this really unusual algorithmic signal to recommendation systems. I mean, we don't know the answers. We'll never know the answers to these, but I think that's the level at which we're thinking about the algorithm. But at the same point, it changes so frequently, and YouTube can fix these little hacks that it wouldn't be worth knowing if that's true or not in the long run.
First of all, what a compelling question that is. I think that's a really awesome thing. I am going to actually send him a link to, I'm going to timestamp this and I'm going to send him a link to this and see if he'll answer that. Because what an interesting question it is. Because that would make sense. Because I'm the same way. I don't like a lot of videos. And if I hit like once in a while, the implication is, holy crap, I think that's really cool. Kind of like the hype thing that's coming out. That they're giving, that hype thing, that hype option. Which is kind of the same idea. It's like, so you only get 3 a week, so you can only kind of space them in a certain way. I wonder if the more often you use likes, the less weight they have. I don't know. I think the way Todd always talks about the YouTube algorithm is more about personalization for each individual viewer. And it would seem to me that would make sense. Like if I'm not only liking stuff every so often, it should be more powerful, I would think. I'll send him the link and see if he'll watch this and see if he has any thoughts on it. What a really cool question that is.
Yeah. And at the same time, the like really only has any value to myself.
Right.
Like, just because I liked something doesn't mean that it's really valuable to similar viewers.
Yep.
But it's really valuable to me and the content that is pulled towards me by the algorithm. And that means, I guess, it can't really be hacked in that sense then if the value is attributed to the viewer as opposed to each individual video.
So in a very recent podcast episode, I don't remember which one because we do so many, I talked about certain analytics that you get that is like, it's interesting, but you can't do anything about it. It's like, don't worry about it. I remember what it was. It was when I was talking about how I've kind of determined that on this channel, shorter form content doesn't perform nearly as well as the long unedited podcast. Like impressions are way lower. And this is one of the things I'm like, it's interesting to know. There's really not much you can do about it. And there's a lot of that in YouTube. When you're growing and kind of putting stuff out, you're like, oh, this is a really interesting aspect of the way YouTube works. But there's literally nothing you can control about it. It just is what it is. And I feel like what you're describing is the same thing. You're supposed to chase the audience, not the algorithm, is kind of the thing to remember. All right, let's get into a couple of these emails.
Sure.
You can send us an email at theboost@vidIQ.com. This very first one is from Mike. Hello, friends who give great guidance and advice. I've heard and read forever that stream VODs, video on demand, can negatively impact a channel. My channel is not gaming focused at all, but I do like streaming games from time to time. I use Twitch for that to keep things separate. I'd like to multi-stream to take advantage of monetization in both places, and VODs seem to do well on YouTube. My question is, would those VODs that are very different content than my primary channel focus harm me? Will the magic algorithm be thrown off? I'd love another avenue to connect with people, and I've worked so hard to get monetized, and I don't want to damage that. Appreciate you both. It's a good question, and I feel like he's asking two different questions here, Rob. Because at first, I hear the stream VODs can negatively impact a channel, which is something we would definitely know about because we do live streams as well as regular content.
Long form and live stream together for 7 years at this point.
But he also says, my question is, with those VODs that are very different content than my primary channel focus. See, to me, that's a different question.
Yeah.
So I guess we can try to answer both questions. So from your perspective, live stream VODs on a channel that does produce content, does it harm anything?
I mean, anecdotally, from vidIQ's experience, I wouldn't say that it does. we typically publish 2 live streams a week, and we've not noticed a significant increase in views when we've stopped live streaming for any period of time, or a significant decrease when we've live streamed a little bit more. Like we did an entire week of live streams a couple of weeks ago, and then we went back to our regularly programmed content, and the numbers went fractionally up. But I don't think that was because we were live streaming. It's just we had a couple of videos that were performing well. I mean, it's always a cop-out answer, Travis, isn't it? But test it. Like, we can give it. We as educators with experience can give you all of the potential answers in the world, but it's different for every single channel. If you start live streaming and you're noticing your long form content is suffering because of it, because maybe your audience is just being overwhelmed by notifications, and maybe you need to pull back. But at the same time, you might cultivate an incredible new, really engaged community through live streams.
Yeah. I love doing live streaming. It's you don't have to edit it, which is great. You can interact with people in real time, and it's fun. Now they're talking about the video on demand portion afterwards. There's a different value there.
Sure.
And if you aren't live streaming on YouTube, to put up an entire VOD of a, it depends on your audience. It may not be as interested, and especially if it's not the same content. I mean, you literally say it's not exactly the same content. I would probably put it on its own channel. I think you answer your question when you say, would those VODs that are very different content than my primary channel focus harm me? I think you kind of know the answer to it. I don't think you should put content that's not similar to your main content on your channel. And we've talked about it many times.
In the viewer's perspective.
Yeah.
Like when you're watching channels that you enjoy, there might be a video that you absolutely loved. And then the following day when you return to YouTube, you see on the homepage another video from that creator, but the topic is a little different, or it's a 2-hour deep dive into something. And for you on that day, you might just say to yourself, nah, you know what? I'm gonna give this one a miss. I'm gonna see what comes next. That's the viewpoint of your viewer. I mean, there will always be channels whereby, irrespective of content, you will watch them. Like mine is MKBHD. Doesn't matter what he publishes, I will watch his videos. But then there are other creators where I'm not as engaged. It's like, yeah, I'll take that video, but I'll leave the following one because it's just not something that really is at the heart of my interests. And that's what you've really got to think about, the viewer intent, especially when they're starting sessions and they're seeing what you're sharing with them today on the homepage.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think it's really important to remember and always obsess over the viewer. This next email comes from React Gamer Girls. Hi, vidIQ team. So, by the way, we got a kind of an influx of emails from people recently. I think we had like a community post that promoted the Boost channel. And when that happens, we get usually a little flood of new people and stuff. And usually it doesn't necessarily relate directly to emails because you have to listen to the podcast and the email address. I think there's one or two exceptions where there is one or two YouTube videos on the main channel that mentions the email address, but normally it doesn't spike too much. And the reason why I bring this up is because people who are in the community that email us always say Jen and Travis, and these last couple have not said that. So it's interesting. So this one, hey vidIQ team, which is really kind of like got my spidey sense tingling, but that's okay. It's a question, and actually, as I pre-read it, it's a good question. Hey vidIQ team, I noticed clear dips in audience retention on my video. Screenshot attached. They have a screenshot of the retention graph. If a section has a big drop, does that mean it's safe to trim it out in YouTube Studio? Since many viewers skip these parts, would cutting them improve watch time and engagement? Appreciate your insights. Here's an interesting story. This is something that I had kind of played around with and talked to other creators with a couple of years ago when I found out that Mr. Beast was doing this. I don't know if he still does it, but he was going into the studio and editing out different parts that had drops in retention to make a better overall video. And potentially that could work. I think the problem is when you're using the YouTube Studio, the ability to edit things precisely is a little bit hard, but more importantly, it's just an edit. You can't add. So it might take the context out of something. So you might take something out and then all of a sudden you go from one jump to another and it doesn't make any sense. So now you've created a new potential dip in your retention. So depending on what it is, if it's like an intro that's long and it does that, sure, take that out because probably that's a problem. If the outro is really long, maybe. Now the problem with that is like if you have a really good call to action, maybe you're taking out the wrong part, but maybe. If it's things in the middle, you got to look at it and go, okay, is this going to make any sense anymore? So much like everything, Rob, the answer is kind of like, maybe experiment. Like it really is, because there is a scenario by which you could use this to kind of make your retention better. And for the most part, it's when you have a really bad intro and you need to get rid of the intro. What are your thoughts on this?
Can you imagine trying to compartmentalize each section of the video so that you could trim it out if it didn't work? That would be
wild.
It would be a challenge. I think, again, there's a question of how much do you care about this video once it's live and it's been on the channel for a couple of weeks and you've had an opportunity to digest this audience retention. Would it be better to take the learnings from that video's AVD graph and apply it to your next video, or start going in and slicing and dicing an existing video? My guess is, Travis, right? What would happen is that if your video was performing really well and it was getting tons of views, but the average view duration was low, you probably wouldn't make any changes, would you? It'd be that classic thing, just leave it alone. Right. If a video is performing really badly and you go in and change the average view duration, the average view duration is low, you can go in and start making changes to the edit. Is it going to all of a sudden resurrect that video? Probably unlikely, but it might be worth doing for you to test. You know, what you'd have to do is say, right, on, let's say, February the 7th, I'm going to make these editing changes, and then I'm going to track the audience view duration after February the 7th. The views aren't really important unless all of a sudden the video takes off. All I'm interested in is whether or not that trim really did make a big difference. And then again, apply it to the next video. That's the important thing. It's learning from your previous mistakes and not making them again going forward. But yeah, I mean, the editor does make it easy to do this, doesn't it, Travis? Like you could probably make these changes in like 5-10 minutes if you wanted to.
Yeah, and I think what you said there is really important. It's to take this information and be able to use it in future videos, not just to try to, gussy up an old video. And I think it's super important to remember that none of this is a guarantee. Like it might actually make things worse. You never really know. But what we're trying to do when we look at something like a retention graph is figure out when people kind of tune out. I love working on retention graphs. I think they're really fascinating and interesting, and it's a great way to kind of make your future videos better by looking at the retention graph and improving upon it. And this is a way to do something with a video that exists on YouTube by taking out the bad parts. But ultimately, the thing that you should be taking away from this is exactly what Rob said. What did I do in this video that I need to be doing either better or less of in the future video so that my retention is just plain better to begin with? And oftentimes, like I said in the beginning, it's usually an intro. But in this particular case, with this particular picture, there's multiple kind of drops, and they're just curious. If I just take these parts out, the one that makes the most sense to me is the one that's at the very end, where there's just a long segment at the end where the outro must just be something people aren't interested in anymore. Chop that off, your retention will go up. Now, will that make it perform better? That is not a guarantee. That is not the guarantee. But your metrics will look better.
I'm guessing at the end point as well, there's probably only maybe like 30 to 40% still watching the video at that point.
Yeah, so actually less than that. Yeah.
You're kind of saving a small amount. And again, thinking big picture, is it a slight dip in 5% of your audience 3 minutes into the video that's a problem, or your title and thumbnail? In which case, you can change your title and thumbnail just as easily as you can. Well, you can change your title and thumbnail infinite times, whereas you make an editorial change, that's it, it's gone. You've removed it from the content and you can't put it back. So again, you've got to try and weigh up what's the most valuable change I can make to this video if I'm trying to bring it back from the dead.
So when you look at this from a perspective of a potential hack to make an old video perform, it's absolutely possible. Totally could work. But much like everything on YouTube, nothing is guaranteed. So there's your answer. Watch one of our other videos.
Nothing's guaranteed.
Nothing is guaranteed. Okay, next up. This one's from Murray. Murray says, hello, Travis. Oh, look, now this is the first time anyone just said me. Like, they were like, I don't even know if Jen's going to be there, which ironically, Jen is not. She'll be back in the next one.
Hi,
hey.
Jen. Hello.
Oh, my gosh. As a gamer, I decided to start putting content I made on Twitch onto YouTube. This is similar to like the previous person. The channel's growing. I know, right? The channel is growing slowly, and I accept that. But of course, want to meet the early threshold to get early entry into partner, which is 500 subscribers and 3,000 watch hours. I'm getting there.
I've got a story about this later on, by the way. Try and remind me at the end of a live stream podcast.
Okay. Well, we can do it right after I get through this. I export all my Twitch content to YouTube as raw footage mostly. And I see that in the last 365 days, I have about 1.1 million impressions and getting sort of good watch hours. Some of my footage is 3 hours and gets good views. I started making shorter footage, is around 1.5 hours, and want to see the difference in the 28-day period. Let's see. So yeah, I mean, I think the question here is, and they were talking about, can you get a channel review? Well, that's on the live channel, but I think the question is like, is this a good idea? I think it's not a bad idea. I think the problem is the thing that kind of irks me when I watch Twitch content on YouTube is all the Twitch things happening on a YouTube channel that you can't do. So like you'll see these things pop up and I'm like, I don't care about any of that.
It's watching a live stream after the fact that you can't engage. Yeah,
and at that point, so live streams after the fact rarely are worth it unless it's the information itself is like super good or there's a really good story being told. Because for the most part, live streams are interesting because they're live. Not always because of the content, but because they're live and you can interact and do all these other things. And when you take that away, the only thing that's left is like, is the video good? And a lot of times live stream videos are not good. So, as long as you have good content that is, engaging and stuff and we've had Jeff talk about this before because Jeff has, he has live stream videos that are VOD that get like 30, 60, 70,000 views after the fact, which is insane.
He really preps them out though, doesn't he? He almost treats them like, I'm recording a video here and you'll just happen to watch it live, which is cool.
That's exactly what he says. He says that's literally what he does. And I think it's super important to recognize that if you want your live streams to perform after the fact, you have to treat them and shoot them as if that's exactly what you're doing. So, and in this particular case, like I said, he's cutting some of them down and seeing things. And you just got to continue to go along with what you're doing here. You're taking 3 hour content, making an hour and a half and see what happens. It seems like you're kind of in a good way, good place moving forward. All right.
My two thoughts there.
Oh yeah, what was your thing?
Well, my two thoughts first are always try to meet the viewer on the platform rather than transplanting the platform onto another platform and trying to convince the viewer there. I think that, like you say, Travis, that viewers aren't stupid and they're always going to smell something is not quite right. And as you say, if you're just putting Twitch content on YouTube with all of this engagement that they can't themselves get involved in, that might be a little off-putting. And the other thing I was going to say is that where at the moment do you want to succeed most? Do you want to succeed on Twitch or do you want to succeed most on YouTube? And for me personally, if I'm going to choose one platform or the other, it doesn't have to be YouTube, it can be Twitch, then I would focus my efforts on making that the best thing for my audience, rather than trying to dilute my effort, because it just means that you're not fully focused on one platform. Like, try and master one platform at a time, in my honest and humble opinion, which is why I've always stayed on YouTube. Like, I would consider myself useless on any other social media platform, but I'm perfectly cool with that. YouTube is my home, and I love what I do here.
What was the thing you were talking about with the monetization?
So, this is for the Boost viewers only Easter egg. So,
oh yeah.
Right. So you see that shirt, VGJ, the Video Gadgets Journal. You can search it on YouTube right now. It is my old tech channel, and I received an email about said tech channel a couple of weeks ago, informing me, Travis, that it is about to get demonetized. And the reason for that is because I think in 2024, the channel got 3,944 watch hours. Wow. So it's fallen below the threshold for monetization. And so as of today, I think the channel is going to get demonetized in about a week.
Oh, no.
So I'm recording a video now as a final plea to anybody on that channel. And I'm saying, look, if we can keep this channel monetized in the next 7 days or whatever, like all the revenue I earn on the channel for the next 12 months will go to charity.
Oh, that's
but
cool.
it's also, I'm also going to turn it into a video for the vidIQ channel, because there's some really interesting facts about the channel, in that on my first day, it earned 13 cents. On my most profitable day, it earned me $130. And like I earned almost half of the revenue on the channel after I completely abandoned the channel, started doing my vidIQ stuff. So there's some interesting little stories to tell there, but the question about getting monetized just reminded me that I'm on the very opposite end of that journey right now with the Video Gadgets Journal.
It's about to die. I feel that way about my channel
13 years monetized. Wow. Now it's about to go.
Yeesh.
The funny thing is, it suggested, the email suggests, we realize you may want to take a break, but when you come back, check out the YouTube creators channel, and it may help you grow your audience. And I was thinking, yeah, I kind of figured it out elsewhere.
We might know another channel.
Been there, done that.
We might know another one
behind me.
Yeah, let me move my gold play button out of the way so I can type on my keyboard. Okay, this email comes from Big Fast Customs. Hey, vidIQ team. There's another one, vidIQ team. This is highly suspicious. I wonder what's going on here. People don't know who we are. Rob, what is happening? These are not the normal people. That's okay.
Clearly not part of the vidIQ crew.
Definitely not, because none of these say vidIQ crew. Crazy. I'm a small creator with my first year under my belt. Still not monetized, but working my way up.
Nice.
One of the rules, quote unquote, I have seen for releasing content is the time to release for when the majority of your viewers are watching using your audience analytics. I have noticed from my audience analytics on a few videos that I've released that YouTube sometimes seems to wait a few days before I see that video being pushed out to more people. Sometimes this misses the key time when many of my viewers are online. I'm wondering if this delay in the promotion of videos due to me being a small creator and the algorithm still isn't sure where to promote it, or if it's something else I'm not considering in the timing of my videos. Pretty good question there, Joe.
Okay.
So there is, and I, for people who don't listen to the podcast regularly, I get kind of antsy as to talking about not conspiracy theories, because they're not conspiracy theories, but they're things that I've observed. People who've watched the Boost a long time, I tend to go more into detail because they understand everything that I kind of talk about, and they can take it into context. But if I just say something and someone's like a newer to the podcast thing, I get worried that they're going to think that, oh, this is just the way things are, and that's the way, and I don't want to do that. But having said that, most of your impressions come after the first 24 hours as it starts to find new people than it does before. It does try to figure out who would be interested in that stuff based on the first kind of 24 hours ish of the first kind of boost of impressions you get, as it throws it out when you first, and by the way, YouTube's going to say, well, it doesn't really push out impressions, it pulls impressions. But for the sake of what we're talking about, when your video goes out, impressions go out. Whether or not that first group of people interact with it in a way that the algorithm finds positive dictates how quickly that next kind of quote burst could happen. Sometimes it happens at the 24-hour mark. Sometimes it happens 19 hours. Sometimes it doesn't happen and it just slowly trickles. Sometimes it dies immediately and is never to be reborn. And then sometimes 3 months later or 200 days later, as we just released a video on the vidIQ channel, it just takes off. These are all possibilities when you release a video. Every single one of them is. And in a lot of ways, Rob, it's like what we talked about earlier in this exact podcast. There are certain things that are truths that you have no control over. And while it's good to understand it and know it, since there's nothing you can do about it, you probably shouldn't worry about it.
Here's what I will say, and I want to add the caveat that I don't want any of these things to be seen as ultimate truths or not. Typically, in the first 24 hours, like the first hour of the video going public tends to get the most views, right? It's just the way it is. It's through notifications more than anything else. And if that is the case, then common sense tells you not to post a video at 3 a.m. in the morning when everybody's asleep. You want to try and time it when your audience is coming online. Okay? Having said that, I would guess, given how the recommendation system works, I would guess that if you are a subscriber to a channel and or you watch a channel on a regular basis, over the first 24 hours of a video's life, YouTube is going to test it with you when you come onto the platform, I think, in my opinion. But I would still, personally speaking, generally recommend trying to post a video when most of your views are online and YouTube gives you that data. This is all irrelevant if the content is time sensitive. Like, you have to get that video out as quickly as possible because that's when there's an interest in that topic, news event, etc., etc. The first is going to win in many cases. Once you get beyond, I'd say 24, 36, 48, 72 hours, then as you say, Travis, there's all sorts of recommendation steps that are going on by YouTube that I can't understand or follow. And also the other thing you've got to try and comprehend is when your audience is engaging with your content. For example, let's say a viewer interacts with YouTube twice a day. The first time they interact with YouTube is when they're on the subway going to work. And so what they want at that point in the day is maybe some short clips, 1 or 2 minute videos. And so YouTube is obviously going to recommend that content that fits their needs at that time. But when they get home from work and they've had food and they're settling down for the evening and sat in front of a television watching YouTube, then they may get completely different recommendations, stuff that's a lot more, sit back and relax content that's going to go on for 40 minutes. So again, it's kind of like, as you said before, it's the things you can't really control. I can't control what my viewer is doing, what and when, but I can make assumptions based off of who my ideal viewer might be when I'm kind of building up that profile of the type of people I want to watch my content.
1000% agree. Everything is personalized, and again, it's a little bit like you can understand how a lot of the system works, and some of it is outside of your control. So worrying about it is probably the wrong action here. Here's an interesting email. Hi, is it true that videos made with AI programs don't get any chance to get good views and results? My channel has 6,455 subscribers, but when I check the status, I just see my videos don't have as many views as I thought I would get. Welcome to YouTube. So a couple of things here. I don't really want to point some things out, but I might have to point some things out. So first of all, maybe they meant 7. Okay, could have make more sense. I think they meant to say 7,450 because I was like, you gain 1,000 subscribers in 2 hours. I think there's something wrong there. But I'm not going to go into super detail about their channel other than to say I like the idea behind the fact that this is a person who lives in Sweden, and I guess like they are part Filipino and stuff, and there's some really cool ideas behind that. However, when you go to their channel, it's that value prop is kind of lost. And I think that some people, when they think about YouTube, they think of it as some type of puzzle to figure out. And they're looking to put these pieces in a way that like, oh, it worked because I put these pieces together, rather than think, what does a person want to watch? Like, that's the real puzzle. Like, what's interesting for a person to watch? I looked at like some of these videos here, and a lot of it just like, and when, I don't know, like let me give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
One of the titles here is a Swedish guy's shocking first impressions of the Philippines. That's a pretty interesting thought, right?
That sounds unique as well.
Huh?
That sounds unique. There's a barrier to entry to that.
It does. However, as soon as you press play, it's a bunch of story blocks and B-roll stuff that has that, and no matter of fact, they're using like stock Getty footage stuff that has iStock in front of it. So it's not even like, it's not what you expect. So
I've lost the trust and the credibility and the originality there, unless it's like a parody type of content.
It's not. So this person is trying to use like not just AI, but then stock images and stuff to make what seems to be a faceless channel that would be something you just set up and set it and forget it. And I kind of blame some of the channels out there that are like, how to start your 6 faceless channels and make all this money. It's so easy, blah, 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 blah. It's not. It's not that easy. Some of them are really good at it, but it's not as easy as they make it seem. And the reality here is, when you look at a channel like this, very few human beings are going to look at this and go, this is a channel I want to subscribe to and watch, because you have stuff, like I said, really interesting idea, but then you have a Polish king triumph through the Battle of Vienna. Like, what does that got to do with the other stuff? It doesn't make sense. What would you watch as a human being? Start focusing on that and stop focusing on trying to figure out what the puzzle of YouTube is. There is no puzzle. Stop it. Think about making good content.
I don't think YouTube in any way, shape, or form is anti-AI. I think they've stated many times that they welcome the influx of AI as a tool because they're releasing their own tools around AI. However, what it does do is it lowers the barrier to entry massively. Pretty much anyone can create a AI piece of content and upload it to YouTube within 90 minutes of trying it for the first time. And something you mentioned there, Travis, was you've got to think about what the viewer wants to watch, but then also the choices they have on YouTube. And because of the barrier to entry on this type of content in this format with AI, the viewer is just being overwhelmed with that AI content at the moment. So I fully encourage creators to embrace AI tools, but also stress that the ideas and the creativity that you can bring to those tools, which makes your content different to anybody else's, is still really, really important. And I would say over the past year, we're now auditing maybe at least 1 or 2 AI channels a week. And they are almost like, they sometimes feel like copy and paste.
Yes.
From one channel to the next. And especially when you are trying to deliver either personal, unique stories, like a Swedish person in the Philippines, you want to get the real, authentic, true stories from that. Or you're trying to give like really important, sensitive information, such as legal stuff or health through AI. Viewers are always going to be skeptical of that content on first impressions. And that's just a really hard barrier to overcome.
And every niche is different. Some niches, there'll be a different tolerance for different types of content and thumbnails and titles and all that stuff. And then tolerance is a big thing, because you might go into a no nonsense niche where they won't put up with any AI stuff. They see AI, they're like, blah. Never watch anything that even remotely looks AI. Then you might go into a whole other niche that's like totally welcoming, like, oh yeah, thumbnails, no big deal, whatever. Retention, same thing. Everything, like topic, title, editing. There's different tolerances from those viewers for everything, and you've got to meet or exceed those tolerances. And I feel like some people are putting, they think a lot of work in when they're really not. They're putting in cookie cutter type content that doesn't work on a broad scale. There are some people who've mastered it, but they're doing things that at times are not immediately obvious in order for them to succeed. So all that being said, it's not as easy as you think. Pretty hard platform to actually grow on, but it is possible. And with that being said,
allegedly,
we come to the end of our show. Rob, what's going down with you this I would say this weekend? Of course, when people are listening to this, it'll be, a different week or whatever, but that's okay. Yeah. What are you up to this weekend?
Well, my folks were supposed to be coming over, but we've had like a terrible cold/lurgy sweep through the house. So I don't know if they're coming now. Like, they were supposed to come today. We said, no, maybe wait until tomorrow and we'll let you know. So I don't know. I might just be chilling at home, trying to complete Until They Fall, which is a VR game that I've had for years, Travis, but I'm just getting into it now. It's like a hack and slash sword game. Really enjoying it. But I've got to a really hard bit on it. And what's your opinion? Let me ask you this. What's your opinion on what's called roguelite games, whereby you play through it, you die, and so you get like a bit more experience to buy new weapons or experience, but then you got to go through the entire game again. So like the entire length of the game is maybe like 2 or 3 hours, but you just keep repeating the levels over and over again and slowly getting better each time you do it.
I've never heard of such a thing. It sounds terrible.
Yeah, I'm still undecided on it.
The closest thing to this that I've heard of that I actually did play a little bit of is a game called Sifu. And it's a kung fu game. But what's interesting about it, and then conceptually really interesting, is every time you quote die, you add a year to your age. Well, it's not even just that. So you start out as like a 20-year-old trying to avenge your master. If you die the first time, you didn't become like 22 or 21, you wake up. But then like it multiplies, because at some point, like if you've died 3 times within the thing, you're now 3 years older. And then it goes older. And then by the end, you could be 80. And that affects your stats.
Yeah.
So you've got to try to beat the game before you age out. So it's a pretty interesting, and the game is really cool. If you watch it on YouTube, phenomenal stuff. Like the kung fu looks really cool.
What are you up to?
What am I up to? I'm going to actually help my best friend's grandson build his first computer.
Nice.
So got a bunch of his parts sitting over there. I'm going to help him put that together, and he's going to be a little gamer. He might start streaming. We'll see.
Have they acquired a 5090? Is that the latest?
I tried to get a 5090, but I'm not even going to bother anymore. That's a whole other podcast I could talk about. I could talk about that for a while, but I won't bore anyone here with that. But no. Anywho, thank you all for joining us. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and the like. If you're listening to the audio podcast, please leave us a 5-star review, especially on Apple. We love those things. And we will see you in the next one.